Hello there and welcome back to my channel, or if this is the first video of mine you are seeing, then welcome. I have it. I have the Natasha Denona I Need a Warm palette. Are we seeing this palette? This is gorgeous. This is so beautiful, I could scream. I haven't even put it on my eyes yet. I have swatched it while I'm filming this portion. I have swatched it by now. You will be seeing it fresh in just a second. You will be seeing some live swatches. Oh, I love this already. Just looking at it, I'm hoping the quality is just as amazing on the eyes, but just looking at it like this, I'm in love with it already. Just the color story alone. This is definitely the warm tone sister of the I Need a Nude, which if you have watched some of my videos in the past, you will know how much the I Need a Nude palette is my all-time favorite eyeshadow palette. I have never found an eyeshadow palette thus far that I love more than that one, and when I saw that she was releasing this one, I knew I had to have it. But I will be doing some live swatches, like I said. I'll have timestamps for you below. I'm going to be doing, I think, three looks with this palette. I'm just going to do what I usually... this palette does reflect, and go row by row, so I'm making sure that I'm using every single shade in the palette. I just like to do that to make sure I am giving a really good, thorough review on all of that. We'll start with the swatches first, but before we get into that, I normally never show my drink or anything like that on camera, but I have to show you my mug. Look at this mug. Look at this mug. Is that not the cutest thing ever? These kitties and these pumpkins, oh, I love it. And it's all the way around the mug. This comes from TJ Maxx, by the way, if you're interested. I don't know if all TJ Maxx stores have like similar stock, but that's where this comes from. And I just had to show this mug. This mug is the cutest thing ever. It's the perfect fall and Halloween mug. So I just wanted to mention it real quick. But let's go ahead and get into the video. Now I have you zoomed in. The only thing I have on is my Milani eyeshadow primer, and then I just set like my crease area with a translucent powder, or well, in this case it was an eyeshadow that was my skin tone. First things first, I'm going to start with the shade Mellow on a Sigma E24, and let's place that into the crease. I never pick up large amounts at a time. I always love to start small and build up if I need to, but this shade is very light. But I think it makes, you know, an amazing just starter shade just to get going here. I am so happy that she released this palette. Now, don't get me wrong. The golden eyeshadow palette that she released is a beautiful palette. That's a stunning one as well. And I thought that was kind of going to be like the warm tone sister of the I Need a Nude. But once this one was announced, this makes me so happy. I kind of hope that she continues these and then, you know, I kind of hope she continues these palettes, because I feel like they end up being some of my very favorites. Now, I know that this one, I haven't used this one yet, but I just feel like it's going to be a good palette. I don't really struggle too much with Natasha Denona's eyeshadows. Like, I never really have that big of an issue with them. And if I do have a slight problem with one, it's usually like one shade. This is a really pretty shade. See, now this is a type of shade that on really quick, easy makeup days, I would just throw this all over the lid and the crease all the way up like I'm doing here, and then just add like a shimmer over the top, and that would be a beautiful, perfect look right there. Using that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Ripe, and I'm going to also apply that into the crease, but more so right in here where my actual crease is, not so much above it too much. A little bit above it so you can see it, but mostly right in here. Right where I have a, well, I guess where my eyeball sits. Right there. Just a little touch of a slightly deeper shade. I think that shade's going to help the next shade I'm going to apply blend a little bit easier into it because it has just a little bit more depth than the first shade I went into. Assuming that the quality is just going to be as amazing as the other palettes I've used from Natasha Denona, this would probably be a warm tone lover's dream. And these tones definitely remind me of fall. I think this was a perfect palette to release right now. Now, of course, these tones are also really beautiful in like summertime, or I mean all year round, of course, but when I had it swatched out on my arm, it definitely screamed fall time to me. Just keeping it simple with that same exact brush, and this time we're going in with the shade Soft Spot. This top row has a kind of shifty shade in here. Now, of course, for those of you who use a lot of indie brands, that is not going to be anything spectacular. But I love seeing shades like that in a mainstream brand's palettes because it's not something that's very common. I feel like in a palette like this. So I think I definitely want that shade by itself on the lid. There are two shimmer shades on the top row, but I want that more shifty shade definitely on the beginning half so you can really see the shift to it. And then I'll add the other shimmer on the lower lash line. Okay, just that little bit of depth. And I'm going to go back over that with my Flawless Concealer brush from e.l.f. I love to use this after I get done with all the matte shades and just kind of run over it just like this. Because you can see that just further blends everything together, but now it definitely lightens the shades even further. So if you like a punch when it comes to darker shades, then you don't want to do that. But for me, I just love to keep eyeshadows more on the softer side. It's just something that I love. So far, so good. Everybody's blending out beautifully together. No issues. And of course, we're going back in with this more fluffier brush from e.l.f. and blending that out even further, just to make that even softer. Now, I know this shade would probably work much better applied with your finger because it's more of those shifty shades. However, not going to happen, but I'm hoping, can you see? This is the shade Phenomena. Yeah. I'm hoping you can see. I don't know how I'm going to show you the shift. How can I? Okay. Can you kind of see it like that? Kind of shifts from there to like a green. I'm trying to show you. That's really hard to do. But it's a beautiful shade. So I'm going to take that on an E57 from Sigma. I'm not going to spray the brush yet, but now this might be a shade that would really benefit from doing so or using your finger as well, but let's just see how it does on its own. Yeah, I think that would definitely work better with a finger or a wet brush, of course, because I think it would, it's very pretty on its own, don't get me wrong, but it would definitely probably make it pop even more. Hoping, can you see the shift when I turn my head? I'll have to definitely, I won't know for sure until I'm editing if you can really see the shift, but it is very pretty. Kind of shifts to like a green, but like I said, if you are someone that uses a lot of indie brands, you're not going to be that impressed by this shade because it, you know, indie brands know how to do these really shifty, beautiful shades, but for a mainstream brand, it's beautiful. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly do the rest of my face. I'll come back and do the lower lash line, and then I'll zoom out and tell you what's on the rest of my face. I'm going to take the shade Ripe and then one little tap into the shade Soft Spot. Like the majority of what I picked up was that shade Ripe, and then I'm going to put that on this outer half of my lower lash line. And then just kind of turn the brush and blend that out. Then I'm going to go in with the shade Fancy, and I'm going to put that on this inner corner and then also drag it along the lower lash line as well. And here is look number 1. Okay, I'm going to back the camera out and just show you what is on the rest of my face. For my blush, I'm wearing the Tarte Man Eater Blush and Glow Cheek Plump. This one is in the shade Buff. I just applied it with a sponge today, so it's very soft and subtle. And for the lips, I'm wearing the Fenty Beauty Traced Out Lip Liner in the shade Peanut Butter. And over the top of that, I'm wearing the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb Stick in Sorta Selfish. Just a little bit of that kind of just tapped over the top just to give me that little bit of glow. And all of the rest of the products that I'm wearing are just the ones that I picked out for my everyday makeup drawer video. That video went up this past Monday. All of those are what I'm wearing on the rest of my face, like the foundation and stuff. Here's this first look. So far, so good. Really love this. So pretty. I just love how pretty and warm this look is. It makes you want to put on a sweater, sip some coffee, eat a warm slice of apple pie. So let's move on to look number 2. Alright, we're moving on to look number 2. So we are just going to be using the shades in the second row here. So let me zoom you in and we'll get started on that. I'm going to start with the shade Fervor on a Sigma E24. And I'm going to start running that into my crease. All was definitely well with the first look that I wore. I had no issues whatsoever with it lasting or anything. There was some minor creasing, but as I have said before in some of my videos, that is really because my Milani eyeshadow primer just really isn't cutting it for me anymore. And I did run out of my little sample of the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer. Now I do have a little sample of the one from them in the shade Sin. However, I believe that's supposed to be a shimmer base. Like, I think there's shimmer in the formula, so I didn't really want to use that while I'm testing out an eyeshadow palette. Because since it has such a shimmery base, I just feel like that wasn't the best option to do right now. So I've just been using my Milani one again, and I do have issues now with that one causing eyeshadows to crease on me by the end of the day. So that had nothing to do with this palette in particular. I sometimes feel like I always go in more heavy-handed on this eye than I do my other one. I don't know why that is. I always have one eye that I can do better than the other eye. I don't know if that's... Well, you know what? That's probably true for a lot of people. Like, you have one eye that's like the easiest eye to do. This would be mine. And then I feel like I always kind of sometimes struggle with this eye. Not sure exactly why that is. That's a really pretty shade. It's blending out beautifully. On that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Them. Now this is a much more deeper shade, so I'm only going to tap into that shade just a few times. And then press it out here. I'm going to be applying 2 shimmer shades on the lid, so I'm mostly keeping this on this outer third. Didn't really have to use this shade here, really. I could have just done like one shimmer shade and then the other, but I just wanted to apply this shade out here. Just add a touch of depth, not much. Also, I do want to take this opportunity to thank so many of you for your absolute sweet words on my last video. I know that I mentioned in that video about how somebody commenting about me talking too much, and just the kindness that you all sent back to me was very sweet, and I just want to thank you for that. That meant a lot to me. I really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch my videos. It truly does mean the world, so thank you so much. Okay, and we all know I'm going to go back in with this brush and even blend that out further because I just like the most subtle bit of depth. You know, as I'm sitting here, the day I'm filming this part, I know that Nomad Cosmetics brought back their Ghost Town palette, and I think they brought back their Haunted Europe palette as well. I am so tempted to pick up that Ghost Town palette because it is a neutral palette for the most part. I'm so tempted to pick it up, but I just don't know if I'm going to yet or not. I've never tried that brand. I want to because I hear such good things. Now, the Haunted Europe palette is pretty, but it has a lot more pops of color in it. I really probably wouldn't get much use out of that palette because of that reason. But the Ghost Town palette just looks right up my alley. And then they have two mini palettes that I'm looking at, and both of them are neutral. One looks more of like a cool tone neutral, and the other one just looks like just a neutral. I'm so tempted to purchase those three, or at least the Ghost Town palette. I don't know, it seems that they keep the little mini palettes quite more often. I think their larger palettes sell out quite frequently. I know they said that this would be the last time they were bringing back the Haunted Europe palette, so if you were someone that missed out on that palette, they do have it back. I can't speak for the quality. I've never tried the brand, but I hear nothing but good things. I'm going to take the shade Push on a Sigma E57. I'm not going to spray my brush or anything like that. I'm just going to go into this shade first, just the way it is, and then I can always spray my brush if I need to. And I'm going to put that in just the very center of my lid, leaving space at the beginning because I do have one more shimmer shade that I'm going in with. It's pretty. These are really pretty shades in this palette. You know, I think some of these eyeshadow palettes that are coming out now have made me excited again for eyeshadow, because for a while I was just wearing like single shadows, like a one and done. But with this palette coming out, that Too Faced palette that came out with the apples on it, and then seeing this palette come back from Nomad, like I just feel like it's gotten me a little more excited for eyeshadow palettes again. And then on the same brush, I'm going in with the shade Snug. This shade looks a little bit lighter than that first shade, and we're going to place that on the beginning portion here. It might be about the same shade. Yeah, it kind of looks about like the same shade. It might be just a touch brighter, but not by much. You know, I probably should have used the shade Elm. That was a mistake. I think I should have used the shade Elm on this first and then put the shade Snug on the lower lash line, because that shade looks kind of like the shade I put in the middle. It's just a teeny bit lighter. Yeah, I messed up there. I should have used that shade Elm instead. So you know what? Let me put Elm over the top of that, over that Snug shade. Let me just try it. Why not? We're just here experimenting. Oh yeah, that's way brighter. The first shade was fine. I just felt like it looked a little too similar to that shade, so I wanted more of this pop like what I have right here. Yeah, that I like. I love to have more of a brightness in here for just me and what I like. I also like that better on my eye shape, like a pop of brightness here and then a little bit of depth out here. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly do the rest of my face. I'll come right back and do my lower lash line. I actually believe I'm going to wear the same exact products that I wore in look 1, but I will give a little recap at the end here just to kind of confirm that. I might switch it up a little bit with the lip, I'm not sure, but let me do all that right quick and I'll be right back. I'm going to take the shade Fervor, and I'm going to run that all the way across my lower lash line. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the shade Elm and run that on the beginning portion. Connect it kind of with that outer corner here. Inner corner, not outer corner, inner corner right here. And here is look number 2, all done. Right, I got you backed out a little bit so I can show you what's on the rest of my face. I did end up using the same Tarte Maneater Blush and Glow Cheek Plump. This one is in the shade Buff. This is what I used yesterday. I just am so in love with this. I don't want to stop using it. And for the lips, I did switch it up a little bit from yesterday. I am using the e.l.f. Cream Glide Lip Liner in Truth or Bare. And the CoverGirl, I believe these are called the Clean Lipsticks. This one is in the shade Maple Glaze. Just wanted to switch up the lip combo a little bit. I think it looks kind of similar to what I wore yesterday. This might just be a touch warmer. I'm not sure, but for the most part, and for everything else, that remained the same as everything I picked yesterday. Just products from my everyday makeup drawer. But still, so far, so good here with look number 2. So I got one more look to do with this palette, 5 more shades, So next we have look number 3. We are moving on to the third and final look in this palette. I'm just going to be using this bottom row here. Well, if I turn the palette the right side up, you can do this bottom row here, just going all the way across. I think one of these shades, the shade Flashover, I believe is almost like a cream, which I forgot all about that, and I did go ahead and set my eyeshadow primer, so I'm hoping that I don't have any issues with that. I forgot that I think that that's kind of like a new formula in this palette. I'm not exactly sure. So I'm hoping that it'll still work over the top of what I did, but I only set from here up, so I'm hoping it'll be okay, but we'll see how it goes. But that shade Flashover, I'm going to start with that first on a Sigma E24. This is that new kind of formula, I believe. It feels almost like a cream. I picked up a very small amount of that because I'm not exactly sure what this formula is like. I don't even think I've read what it is on her website, or at least on like Sephora or Ulta, like read about this shade, but I believe it's supposed to be like a new type of formula. No, it looks like it's blending out fine from what I can see. It looks like it's not struggling at all to go over that powder, so okay. And maybe it's not a cream, it just kind of feels like one in the pan. All right, I'm gonna pick up a little bit more. And I'm going to add a little bit of that. Kind of build that up some. I'm only picking up a teeny amount of that because this whole bottom row is mostly like deeper shades, but I wanted to make sure a shade was light enough for me to place it into my crease like this. So far, I have really been loving this eyeshadow palette. I have not had any issues thus far, and I'm glad to see that this shade is looking really nice. Also ignore anything that I get out here. Of course, I always go over that with like my concealer, so it will look more like that than that. But that's one reason why I love to do my eyes first, so I can be fairly messy and then clean it up later. Yeah, that laid down really smoothly, even though I did have oh gosh, I might have went in too much. Let me wipe some of that off. Okay, I went in a little too much. Let me wipe some of my brush off and go back in and blend that out. But it is blending out nicely over the top of that powder, so maybe it's not exactly a cream. I will have to look back on the description for this palette and kind of see what it says about this shade. But it blends out very easily because I went in with a little too much on this side and it's already blended out just fine, so I'm really happy to see that. On that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Hanker. This is like a shimmer shade, but I want to press that on this outer half of my lid. There is another matte shade, but I just wanted to try this shimmer shade and just see what it did. And that's very pretty. If you were going for more of like a soft smoky eye, that shade all over the lid would be so stunning. Yeah, this is a pretty shade. I really like this shade. And it blends out so easily. Of course, now, so far, every shade that I've used has blended out very well. Like, I have not had any issues whatsoever. On a Sigma E57, I'm going in with the shade Homey. And I didn't spray my brush. I'm going to see what this shade does on its own. Go in with a little bit more and build that up. That's very pretty. Ooh. It looks a little more sparkly than any of the other shimmer shades in this palette. Yeah, like it's definitely like a very sparkly shade. So that might be a shade that you might want to spray your brush just to kind of keep the sparkles. I don't really see any, well, maybe like a tiny touch of fallout, but nothing like too bad. But to prevent any fallout, it might be a shade you want to spray your brush with. I don't even know if my camera will even do that shade justice. It is so beautiful and sparkly in person. Not like glittery. I don't mean like glittery, but just like very sparkly. I just don't think my camera is going to do that shade any justice because that is so stunning. I'm hoping you can see it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and apply my mascara and the rest of my face off camera. I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. I'm going to take the shade Pep on a Sigma E57. Now I dipped once into that shade because it is very pigmented, and I'm going to run it about a little bit more than halfway across my lower lash line. I have one more shade after this eyeshadow. On that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Dynamism. And that shade is going to go right here on the beginning half of that lower lash line, kind of meeting up with that inner corner. And here is the final look, all done. Okay, I've zoomed you out a little bit for me to right quick tell you what's on the rest of my face. For my blush, I am wearing the Charlotte Tilbury Love and Light Lip and Cheek Glow, and this one is in Color of Passion. I'm wearing a very soft amount of that. I took my sponge and tapped into this and then tapped it onto my skin. I didn't want too much of this color. This look turned out to be, I say, the most neutral of the three looks that I've done. This one didn't have as much warmth, but I didn't know if the berry would clash, so I wanted a very small amount of that. I think it's so pretty. This is a really lovely product. I would love to look at some of the other shades. And for this lip combo, I am wearing the Kosas Hot Liner Hyaluronic Acid Contouring Lip Liner, and this one is in the shade Beyond. And then over the top of that, I am wearing the e.l.f. Cosmetics Sun Boss Gloss. This is the SPF 25, and this one is in That's My Jam. I just have that right over the top. I think these two together make such a beautiful lip combo. That combo is perfect for the fall time. I mean, anytime, of course, but yes, definitely a beautiful fall lip combo right there. Now that all three looks are done, I have officially used all 15 shades in this palette, and I definitely do really love this palette. This is a beautiful, beautiful palette. Now, with that being said, do you need this palette? Of course not. If you have a lot of warm tone neutrals in your collection already, then more than likely you can easily dupe this palette out. But I feel like if you were someone that was wanting this palette and you were wanting to put the money into this palette, because I want to say this is like a $69 eyeshadow palette, it's a pretty pricey palette, but if you are wanting to spend that money on this palette, I really personally don't think you'd be disappointed. It is beautiful quality. I did not struggle at all with any of these shades. They are so beautiful. And this sparkly, that shade Homey, that is so beautiful. I just wish you could see that shade in person. I don't know if my camera could do that shade justice. It is so lovely. But I'm very impressed with this palette. I think it is so beautiful. It is definitely going into my top 10 favorites for sure. And I would love to definitely pair this one up with the I Need a Nude palette. I think they would be really beautiful together. Now, do I like this one more than the I Need a Nude? No. That palette is always going to be the top palette for me. Now, I will say that if you were only interested in this palette because of this shifty shade, and you really didn't want the palette, but you thought that shade was unique, I would definitely tell you to look at indie brands, in specific those that sell single shadows, because I feel like if you want just one really beautiful shifty eyeshadow that is definitely going to give you a huge impact, definitely look to indie brands if you're only interested in that one shade in this palette, because maybe you feel like you already have all of these shades already, but maybe that was the one shade that you felt like would be unique to your collection. Well, if you weren't interested in buying the whole palette for that one shade, which is why I'm saying that if you really didn't want the other shades, you just wanted that one particular shadow, I would definitely look at indie brands. They make beautiful shades like that, and they would definitely have more of an impact than this one. This is beautiful. This is a beautiful shade for a mainstream brand, but it's definitely not on the same level as those from indie brands when it comes to that shift and seeing that on the eye. But all in all, I'm very happy to have this palette. I really do enjoy it. I've loved every look. I want to say this look might be my favorite out of the three I've created. I don't know. There's just something about this look. I think it might be that really beautiful sparkly shade. I don't know. I just think this just is turned out really pretty. But I do hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, I hope you will please consider leaving a like, a comment, or subscribing if you haven't already. And make sure you hit the bell icon so you are alerted to all of my future uploads, and follow me on Instagram at jessicadeerly. I will have this palette listed and linked for you below from both Ulta and Sephora. They are affiliate links, so if you click through and purchase, I do earn a small commission, and if you choose to do so, thank you so much for supporting me and my channel, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!